Hello, everyone. We are back today to talk about something that many people talk about in immigration, but few people understand. Asylum. I'm Raluca, and I provide immigration, family law, and estate planning legal services, and I'm here with my marketing and office manager, Nina Clear. Thank you, everyone watching, and for all your likes, shares, and comments. Please let us know if you're watching this live or if you watch the replay. All your interactions help other people to see our videos.
So we wanted to talk about asylum today because there's a lot of people who are confused. It's always in the news, especially with this caravan and everything like that. So will you define asylum for us, please?
Sure. Asylum is when someone seeks protection by being able to live in the United States legally because they have suffered persecution or have a well-founded fear of persecution for specific reasons.
And what do those reasons include?
They can be based on persecution based on of race, nationality, religion, membership in a particular group, or political opinion.
So maybe if you can give us a few examples of who they might be, that might help people understand.
Sure. We have seen, for example, Chinese nationals who are Christians apply for and be granted asylum. We have seen people who are outspoken critics of their government's policies to be granted asylum. And we have seen those who are homosexual also be granted asylum depending on their country of origin.
Because some countries, homosexuality is illegal.
It's illegal, yes.
So, and then I've also heard the term credible fear in regards to asylum. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. An asylum officer determines if a person has a credible fear of persecution if they return to their home country. This means that their fear is believable with supporting evidence, and they have a significant possibility of being granted asylum. If the officer finds that they do have this fear, they grant them a preliminary approval. So last year, almost 89% of the people who applied for asylum were granted preliminary approval.
And that's a huge percentage in immigration terms, right?
It is, but it is only for the preliminary decision. They still have to go before an immigration judge, and the percentage is depressingly much smaller.
How small?
During fiscal year 2018, of the 34,000 immigration cases that were completed or closed, 71% ended with an order of removal, so they were not approved.
And I probably should clarify, it's the asylum immigration cases.
Yes,
so 34,000 asylum immigration cases in 2018. And that's not very encouraging.
No, it's not. There is also a different standard for reasonable fear for people who have previously been in removal proceedings. It can be complicated, so I recommend you that you talk with an attorney about your individual situation to see what you're looking at.
And can you work in the U.S. while you're awaiting an asylum decision?
That is possible. First, you have to apply for employment authorization.
And do you do that at the same time as you apply for asylum?
No. In fact, you cannot apply for them both at the same time.
So when do you apply for employment authorization?
You have to wait for 150 days after you file your asylum application before you can apply for employment authorization.
And is that granted immediately?
No. USCIS currently has a processing time of 2 weeks to 3 months.
2 weeks to 3 months, which is
yes,
very
it's
bad.
a lot. At the National Benefit Center for a pending asylum application, but that may be different if your application is being reviewed at a different location.
So are you able to file for your spouse and children when you file for asylum?
Yes. You may ask to have your spouse and any unmarried children under the age of 21 included in your asylum decision.
And is there a fee for applying for asylum?
If you hire an attorney, they may charge you, but there is no filing fee for USCIS when you apply for asylum.
And if you are applying for asylum, there are a bunch of different charities that help people.
Yes.
So that would be something to look at if you don't have money. They might be able to help.
Yes.
So how is it determined if you are eligible for asylum?
An asylum officer must first determine if you are a refugee under the Immigration and Nationality Act, Section 101A, 42A. They will then review your information to determine if you have anything in your past that might bar you from being admitted to the United States.
Can you give us an example of what that might be?
Sure. If you committed a violent crime, if you were a member of a terrorist group, or had previously been deported from U.S., are just a few examples.
So what about if you don't speak English? Will there be an interpreter there?
No, if you don't speak English and you need an interpreter, you will need to bring one to your interview.
And where do you need to be when you apply for asylum?
You can either be entering the U.S. at the border, or if you are already here in the United States, you must apply for asylum within 1 year of entering. And there are some exceptions to this rule, but they are very, very narrow.
Did it have to be a legal entry if you're here in the U.S. in order for you to apply?
No, you can apply whether you enter the U.S. legally or illegally.
And recently there was a court that overturned a policy the current administration had tried to put into place about gang violence or domestic violence. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, an Obama-era policy had said that victims of domestic violence and gangs were considered members of a social group, which allows for applying for asylum. Then Jeff Sessions decreed that this was just a loophole, and he wouldn't allow domestic violence victims or those afraid of gang violence to apply for asylum. However, that has since been overruled by a court, and they can as of today.
And I've also read people saying Mexico offered asylum, so the people in the caravan rejected that, and they can't apply for asylum here because there's this first country rule they're all trying to say applies. Can you help us understand what that means?
This isn't a law that is in place right now. It is a suggestion under the ADP, Asylum Procedure Directive, which applies to the European Union members, not the U.S. A person seeking asylum in the U.S. does not need to accept the first country who offers asylum.
And once you're granted asylum, do you keep that status indefinitely?
After being here for a year as an asylee, you can apply to adjust your status to that of a legal permanent resident. And for 4 years later, you can also apply to become a U.S. citizen.
Which we always recommend.
Yes.
Become a citizen as soon as you can.
Yes.
Okay, and then you have a note of caution, which is also on the USCIS paperwork, websites, everywhere, that you want people to be aware of. And what is that?
Yes, and it's very important. If you apply for asylum, knowing that you have no basis for your application, you can be permanently ineligible to apply for any other status. So even if you say an attorney or someone else told you to apply for asylum and you believe them and you relied on them for that knowledge, that is not an acceptable excuse. Once you have applied and you didn't qualify for it, you can be barred for applying for anything else afterwards. So you must have been persecuted or to have a fear of persecution for belonging in one of the groups that we mentioned earlier when you apply for asylum. So this is what we have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and we truly appreciate your support, and we enjoy helping as many people as possible with our information. And we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.